what's up, guys? This is Just in Time. I'm not Mr. Right, but I'm here coming at you live here in just a few moments to bring you the Noor 54. You can call me at 865-963-8821. I'm going to read a list of our promoters and paid people at the end of the show, so stay tuned. That's right, guys. Stay tuned for just a few minutes. This is Just in Time, bringing you the Noor 54. Alright, guys, this is, I'm not Mr. Right, but I am just in time. I'm bringing you the Noor 54. Again, for this episode, I'm going to play a few tracks, and we're reading out of Dashiell Hammett's Red Harvest. I'm going to set this track up and go ahead and start the story. Chapter 15, Cedar Hill. Mickey Lannan used the telephone to wake me a little afternoon. "We're here," he told me. "Where's the reception committee?" "Probably stopped to get a rope. Check your bags and come up to the hotel. Room 537. Don't advertise your visit." I was dressed when they arrived. Mickey Lannan was a big slob with sagging shoulders and a shapeless body that seemed to be coming apart at all its joints. His ears stood out like red wings, and his round face usually wore the meaningless smirk of a half-wit. He looked like a comedian. And he was. Dick Foley was a boy-sized Canadian with a sharp, irritable face. He wore high heels to increase his height, perfumed his handkerchiefs, and saved all the words he could. They were both good operators. "What did the old man tell you about the job?" I asked. We had settled in the seats. The old man was a manager of the Continental San Francisco branch. He was also known as Pontius Pilate, because he smiled pleasantly when he sent us out to be crucified on suicidal jobs. He was a gentle, polite, elderly person with no more warmth in him than a hangman's rope. The agency wits said he could spit icicles in July. "He didn't seem to know much what it was all about," Mickey said, "except that you had wired for help. He said he hadn't gotten any reports for you for a couple of days. The chances are he'll wait a couple more. Know anything about this person, Bill?" Dick shook his head. Mickey said, "Only that I've heard parties call it Poisonville, like they meant it." I told him what I knew and what I had done. The telephone bell interrupted my tale in the last quarter. Dina Brand's lazy voice. "Hello? How's the wrist?" "Only a burn. What do you think of the crush out?" "It's not my fault," she said. "I did my part. If Noonan couldn't hold him, that's just too bad. I'm coming downtown to buy a hat this afternoon. I thought I'd drop in and see you for a couple of minutes if you're going to be there." "What time?" "Oh, around 3. "Right. I'll expect you. And I'll have that 200 and a dime I owe you." "Do," she said. "That's what I'm coming for. Ta-ta." I went back to my seat and my story. When I finished, Mickey Lannan whistled and said, "No wonder you're scared to send in any reports. The old man wouldn't do much if he knew what you've been up to, would he?" "If it works out the way I want it to, I won't have to report all the distracting details," I said. "It's right enough for the agency to have rules and regulations, but when you're out on the job, you've got to do it the best way you can. And anybody that brings any ethics to Poisonville is going to get them in all rusty. A report is no place for dirty details. Anyway, I don't want you birds to send any writing back to San Francisco without letting me see it first." "What kind of crimes have you got for us to pull?" Mickey asked. "I want you to take Pete the Finn. Dick will take Lou Yard. You have to play it the way I've been playing. Do what you can when you can. I have an idea that the pair of them will try to make Noonan let Whisper alone. I don't know what he'll do. He's shifty as hell and he does want to even up his brother's killing." "After I take this finished gent," Mickey said, "what do I do with him? I don't want to brag about how dumb I am, but this job is plain as astronomy to me. I understand everything about it except what you have done and why, and what you're trying to do and how. You can start off by shadowing him. I've got to have a wedge that can be put between Pete and Yard, Yard and Noonan, Pete and Noonan, Pete and Thaler, or Yard and Thaler. If we can smash things up enough, break the combination, they'll have their knives in each other's backs, doing our work for us. The break between Thaler and Noonan is a starter, but it'll sag on us if we don't help it along. Take a quick paid promotional break. This is just in time. I'm not Mr. Right, but I'm coming at you live with the Nora 54. I just want to give a shout out to one of our paid promotional people, keeping this thing going on. This particular episode is brought to you by Elk Fashion, tailored for your ideas. A sewing manufacturer, wholesale distributor, right here in our own Orlando, Florida. Call them Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 for your cutting and sewing, embroidery, sublimation, and alterations. You can reach them at 407-671-3113, or you can call me. I'm not Mr. Right, but I am just in time, and you can call me anytime at 865-963-8821. Let me comfort you in this dark time. And now back to our scheduled program. After breakfast, I went over to City Hall. Noonan's greenish eyes were bleary, as if they hadn't been sleeping, and his face had lost some of its color. He pumped my hand up and down as enthusiastically as ever, and the customary amount of cordiality was in his voice and manner. Any line on Whisper? I asked, when he had finished the glad handy. I think I've got something. He looked at the clock on the wall and then at his phone. I expected word any minute. Sit down. Who else got away? Jerry Hooper, Tony Agosti are the only other ones still out. We picked up the rest. Jerry is Whisper's man Friday, and the Wop's one of his mob. He's the bozo that put the knife in the Ike bushes the night of the fight. Any more Whisper's mob in? No. We just had the three of them, except Buck Wallace, the fellow you potted. He's in the hospital. The chief looked at the clock on the wall again, and at his watch. It was exactly 2 o'clock. He turned to the phone. It rang. He grabbed it and said, Noonan talking. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Right. He pushed the phone aside and played a tune on the row of pearl buttons on his desk. The office filled up with the coppers. Cedar Hill Inn, he said. You follow me out with the detail baits. Terry, shoot out Broadway and hit the dump from behind. Pick the boys up on traffic duty as you go along. Likely, we'll need everybody we get. Duffy, take yours out to Union Street and around by the old mine. McGraw, we'll hold headquarters down. Get a hold of everybody you can and send them after us. Jump! He grabbed his hat and went after them, calling over his thick shoulder to me. Come on, man. This is the kill. I followed him down to the department garage, where the engines of half a dozen cars were roaring. The chief sat behind his driver. I sat in the back with 4 detectives. Men scrambled into the other cars. Machine guns were unwrapped. Armloads of rifles and riot guns were distributed. And packages of ammunition. The chief's car got away first. Off with a jump that hammered our teeth together. We missed the garage door by half an inch. Chased a couple of pedestrians diagonally across the sidewalk, bounced up the curb into the roadway, missed a truck as narrowly as we missed the door, and dashed out King Street with our siren wide open. Panicky automobiles darted right and left. Regardless of traffic rules, to let us through, it was a lot of fun. I looked back, saw another police car following us, a third turning into Broadway. Noonan chewed an old cigar and told the driver, "Give her a bit more, Pat." Pat twisted around a frightened woman's coupe, put us through the slot between streetcars and laundry wagon, a narrow slot that we couldn't have slipped through if our car hadn't been so smoothly enameled, and said, "All right, but the brakes aren't no good." "That's nice," the gray mustache sleuth on my left said. He didn't sound sincere. Out of the center of the city, there wasn't much traffic to bother us, but the paving was rougher. It was a nice half-hour's ride, with everybody getting a chance to sit in every road that had hills enough to keep us from forgetting what Pat had said about the brakes. He wound up at a gate topped by the shabby electric sign that had said Cedar Hill Inn before it lost its globes. The roadhouse, 20 feet behind the gate, was a squat wooden building painted a moldy green and chief surrounded by brush. Front door and windows were closed. Blank. We followed Noonan out of the car. The machine that had been trailing us came into sight round the bend in the room, slid to the rest beside ours, and unloaded its cargo of men and women. Weapons. Noonan ordered this and that. A trio of coppers went around the side of the building. 3 others, including a machine gun, remained by the gate. The rest of us walked through tin cans, bottles, and ancient newspaper to the front of the house. The gray mustache detective who had sat beside me in the car carried a red axe. We stepped up on the porch. Noise and fire came out under a window sill. The gray mustache detective fell down, hiding the axe under his corpse. The rest of us ran away. Again, we're going to take a quick minute to talk about our paid promotional people. The people who have paid to bring this to you this dark evening. It's brought to you by Elk Fashion. Tailored solutions for your ideas. Sewing manufacturer, wholesale distributor in our very own Orlando, Florida. Call them Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for all your cutting and sewing needs, embroidery, sublimation, and alterations. Their number is 407-671-3113. Or you can call me. I'm not Mr. Right, but I am just in time. Call me anytime at 865-963-8821. Let me comfort you in these dark times.
Easy girl. You okay? You playing the music? Doing good.
I ran to Newton. We hid in the ditch on the inside of the road. It was deep enough and banked high enough to let us stand almost erect without being targets. The chief was excited. "What luck?" he said happily. "He's here! By God, he's here!" "That shot came from under the sill," I said. "Not a bad trick." "We'll spot it, though," he said cheerfully. "We'll see the dump. Duffy ought to be pulling up on the other road by now. Terry Shane won't be many minutes behind him. Hey, Donner!" He called a man who was peeping around a boulder. "Swing around back and tell Duffy and Shane start closing in as soon as they come. Let fly with all they got. Where's Kimball?" The peeper jerked a thumb around a tree beyond him. He could see only the upper part of it from our ditch. "Tell him to set up this mill and start grinding," Newton ordered. "Low, across the front. Ought to do it like cutting cheese." The peeper disappeared. Noonan went up and down the ditch, risking his noodle over the top now and then for a look around, once in a while calling it or gesturing to his men. He came back, sat on his heels beside me, gave me a cigar and lit one for himself. "It'll do," he said complacently. "Whisper won't have a chance. He's done." The machine gun by the tree fired, haltingly, experimentally, 8 or 10 shots. Noonan grinned and let a smoke ring float out of his mouth. The machine gun settled down to his business, grinding out metal like a busy little death factory it was. Noonan blew another smoke ring and said, "That's exactly what I'd do." I agreed that it ought to. We leaned against the clay bank and smoked a while farther away. Another machine gun got going, and then a third. Irregular rifles, pistols, shotguns joined in. Noonan nodded approvingly and said, 5 minutes of that, we'll let him know there's a hell." When the 5 minutes were up, I suggested a look at the remains. I gave him a boost up at the bank and scrambled up after him. The roadhouse was as bleak and empty looking as before, but more battered. No shots came from it. Plenty were going into it. "What do you think?" Noonan asked. "If there's a cellar that might be a mouse alive in it, well, we could finish him afterwards." He took a whistle out of his pocket and made a loud noise. He waved his fat arms, and the gunfire began dwindling. We had to wait for a word to go all the way around. Then we crashed the door. The first floor was ankle deep with booze that was still gurgling from bullet holes in the stacked up cases and barrels that filled up most of the house. Dizzy with the fumes spilled hooch, we waited around until we had found 4 dead bodies and no live ones. The 4 were swarthy, foreign-looking men in laborer clothes. 2 of them were practically shot to pieces. Noonan said, "Leave them here and get out." His voice was cheerful, but in a flashlight's glow his eyes showed white-ringed with fear. He went out gladly, though I did hesitate long enough to pocket an unbroken bottle they did walk. A khaki-dressed copper was tumbling off a motorcycle at the gate. He yelled at us. "The First National's been stuck up!" Noonan cursed savagely, bawled, "He's foxed us, damn it! Back to town, everybody!" Everybody except us who had ridden with the chief beat it for the machines. 2 of them took the dead detectives with them. Noonan looked at me out of the corner of his eyes and said, "This was a tough one. No fooling." I said, "Well," shrugged, and sauntered over to his car, where the driver was sitting at the wheel. I took with my back to the house, talking to Pat. I don't remember what we talked about. Presently, Noonan and the other sleuths joined us. Only a little flame showed through our open roadhouse door before we passed out of sight around the bend in the road. concludes this chapter of Red Harvest. Samuel Dash Allen's collected works, incredible writer, incredible storyteller, and you have an incredible story, my friend. Some are diving into it, some are rewriting chapters, and some have yet to start. Give me a call. I'm not Mr. Right, but I am just in time. You can call me anytime at 865-963-8821. Let me comfort you in these dark times. Our program is brought to you by Elk Fashion, tailored solutions for your ideas. Sewing manufacturer, wholesale distributor in our very own Orlando, Florida. Call them Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for all your cut and sewing, embroidery, sublimation, and alteration needs at 407-671-3111. Or you can call me. I'm not Mr. Right, I am just in time. Call me anytime, 865-963-8821. Let me comfort you in the dark times here at the North 54.